What do you guys want to learn from this session? Anyone who can tell me either in the chat box or just communicate here by using the audio option?
Actually, I wanted to know, are we crafting resumes in seconds, or are we crafting resumes that impress hiring managers in 6 seconds?
No, we are basically looking to see what sort of features, what sort of things we should add in the resume that would bring the impression of the hiring managers, and that can be scanned within the 6 seconds, right? Because people, HR managers or people who are screening your resumes, the recruiters, they don't spend more. Will tell you what are the things that you need to add in your resume, what are the common myths, what are the mistakes that people make when they are drafting their resumes or writing their resumes. So we'll talk about all of these things in this session.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else who can share what are they looking to learn from this session?
I do have a question.
Yeah, please go ahead, Umair.
I do have a question. So this session of how to beat 6 second resume scan, is it only for like some genres, for example, marketing, commercial, or it's something that is generically we apply on any
So the
genre?
content that we have people from different backgrounds, right? So the kind of content that we have designed, it's not focused on one genre in a specific, say for example, if you're a marketing professional, so we can talk about examples pertaining to that area, but it's not highly relevant, not entirely focused on that, I would say, because it's a generic thing. We have people from multiple backgrounds, so we have made sure that it kind of relates to everyone. So we'll be talking about common mistakes that people make, what are the things that we need to add, what I'll talk about the overall agenda as well once we have a few more participants. And then if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat box and I'll make sure to answer those. And if you want specific examples to your field, please feel free to drop that in the chat box as well, and I'll see how we can relate it to the session.
I do have few questions, but I might be interested in going through the session, and maybe
yeah,
there are things that
would be perfect. Yeah, that would be perfect. This might answer the questions that you have, right? So we have pretty much covered almost all the things that are pertaining to the resumes. So for example, the action verbs, how do you mention the bullet points in the resume? How do you mention your experience? What sort of skill that you need to talk about? So everything is covered in that. Just in case if we have missed out the questions that you have in mind, feel free to drop them in the chat box.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Yeah, I see there's a comment on. Thank you. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. It's can you just tell me how do you pronounce your name? Just unmute yourself.
It's Sarya.
Sarya, okay. Sarya, I'm looking forward to the session as well, and I hope that this session adds to your learning and you guys at least take something from this session and kind of implement that in the resumes that you would draft.
We definitely will do that.
Awesome. So Samir, do we need to wait for a few more minutes or we can start?
We can start in a minute.
Okay, perfect. Just give me a heads up whenever you want me to start.
Sure.
Awesome.
Okay, there's a question in the chat
Salman,
box.
I won't provide the resume format. Yeah, I'm just taking that. Salman, thank you for your question. So I'm not going to provide you a resume format, but I'll definitely tell you what are the things that you need to add, what's the format that we can use. But the format differs from each person to person, right? So for example, if you're drafting a resume, it differs from position to position. It differs from the region that you're applying for. Say, for example, in UAE, we have seen that people add pictures on the resumes, right? But if you are applying for a job in, say for example, Canada, so right now I'm in Canada, so if I'm applying for jobs, I can't add picture on my resume, right? So it differs from region to region, position to position. So for example, if it's a graphic designer's resume or a UI UX designer's resume, that person is going to make sure that it's defining their creativity, right? But if you are applying for a marketing role or say for example an HR role, then you can't make that sort of creativity or show that sort of creativity because it's not going to go through the ATS, right? So that is something that we need to keep in mind. I'll tell you what sort of things that we can add, and I'll share a generic format if you want. Sameer can forward that to you, but it differs from every person. It can't be one size fits all kind of thing. I hope that this answers your question.
Yes, that answers. Thank you so much.
No problem.
I think we can start now.
All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. I'll start off with my introduction. This is Maneesha Gotam. I work as a senior manager HR at Astera. It's been almost 6.5 years. I have been working with Astera Software. It's a US-based IT company. Initially, I was working with them from Pakistan. Recently, I've moved to Canada, and I'm associated with Astera US. So that's what I have been doing. I have done all sort of recruiting from be it technical position, be it non-technical position. So I have been the front face for people who are looking for jobs. So whether it comes to mentoring them in terms of what sort of CV they should have, how to build a personal brand, how to basically build an online presence, how to revamp their LinkedIn, all sort of things are something that I aspire on, and I kind of make sure that I discuss those things with the people who are looking for opportunities. Not just in the Asia region. I worked in the US, Canada primarily. So that has been my forte. So we'll start off with the session. I'll talk about the agenda that we have for the session. So basically, just give me a minute. Okay. So today's agenda is we'll basically be talking about steps to retool and jumpstart your career. What are the things that you need to keep in mind when you're drafting a resume? Was it different between a CV and resume, and when to use either of these, right? What are the top resume myths that you shouldn't believe? Because there are people who are posting a lot of content on either LinkedIn or social media channels, or even Google for that matter, and we kind of are not sure what sort of myths we should believe on. So we are going to look at that. We'll talk about how to create a branded resume that talks about you, your achievements, your professional goals, your skills, your experiences. So we're going to talk about that. Then we'll talk about how to get people interested in your resume, because there are a lot of people who are applying for the same job that you are applying for, right? So for example, recently I posted a job ad and I came across 400 resumes 400 resumes and 400 candidates who applied for that role, but we only need to hire one person for that role. So how do you get people interested in your resume? That's something that we are going to answer. And then we'll talk about what goes on in a resume, right? Because a lot of people add a lot of unnecessary information. So we'll be differentiating between that, and we'll talk about things that we should add, and those things which are a must-have, right? So that's the agenda I'll be covering. If you guys have any questions during the session, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. And Sameer, you can as you are the moderator, you can just stop me in between, and we'll take on the questions and answer those right away, rather than waiting for the session to end. And then some people might can't relate to the question that they had, right? So we'll be taking those right away. So we'll talk about steps to retool and jumpstart your career. So start with whatever you enjoy. So it could be a completely different field, what you have worked in. So take a look, and don't limit yourself, because when you're looking for opportunity in a foreign state and where you haven't worked in, so there are going to be times when you have to work outside of your field, right? So for example, we have seen a lot of people who in my friend circle or my colleagues. So for example, there is a finance professional who recently came to Canada, but that person is not able to find a job in that area. So how do you make sure that because you have to make some money for a living, right? So you start applying for jobs that are even not related to your field. So what sort of things you need to keep in mind when you're drafting those sort of resumes? We'll be talking about that. You need to find a list of potential employers. So you need to create a list of 15 to 20 companies that you would like to work for. Identify what sort of positions they are looking for, what sort of skill they are looking for, what is their pain point. So you need to understand the entire thing of why their acquisition came in the first place, and understand their business, right? So for example, IT industry is something that I would like to work on, right? So I keep on researching on what are the recent trends in the IT industry, what are the things that companies are doing to differentiate, what is the pain point of the company. So I talk about that, and I create my unique value proposition position based out of that. So you need to start retooling your resume. So make sure that you emphasize different aspects of your career that would be beneficial to your prospective employer. Send out your resume, start sending out the new resume out. You already have a potential employer. So you need to, once you have the list of potential employers, you look for job opportunities, not just on LinkedIn, look for on their website, look on different job sites. So in different regions there are different job sites that people consider, so you need to look at all of those and start calling people back. So don't just sit back and want the employer to call you. Be aggressive, show them that you want this position and that you are a right fit for that position. So you have to basically start reaching out to people on LinkedIn. A lot of times what I have seen is that in basically Asia or basically UAE region, I've seen that people don't reach out to recruiters when they are looking for job opportunities, but that's not something that you should do. If you are interested in a position and if you feel that you are a right fit for that role, you need to be aggressive, reach out to the recruiters, reach out to the hiring manager. At times you could see that on LinkedIn, the person who has posted the job, their profile is already available. So you can make sure to drop them a message, tell them that this is the job that you recently posted, this is how my experience relate to that, and then just let me just rather than sending your resume to them directly, just let them know that this is what interests you and this is your value proposition on the basis of which you think that you are a right fit for that job, right? So you start with that, and once you get a reply, you initiate a conversation and then you share how you can contribute and add value, right? So that's something that we should start with. Resumes basically save the HR person time. As I mentioned, that there are a lot of people applying for the same job, so you need to make sure that you save the HR person time. For example, if you are an undergrad or someone who recently graduated, right? So for you, the experience section should not come at the top, but I've seen that there are people who would put the experience section on the top rather than putting their education at first, right? Because education is something that kind of gives you an edge. So for example, if you have done masters or bachelors from a good university with good credentials, and you kind of can relate to the pointers that are mentioned in the job role, so that should come first. It serves as a record in your file and it gets you an interview. So resume doesn't mean that having a resume doesn't mean that you would get the job. It basically means that you would, if you have a good and well crafted resume, it would get you an interview, right? So it's not going to give you a guaranteed job opportunity, but it would make sure to differentiate you and make people consider you for an interview, right? So that's something that we need to keep in mind. Now, what's the difference between a resume and a CV? So anyone from the list of participants who can tell me what's the difference between a resume and a CV? Anyone?
I think a CV is something when you are applying for the first time that has only your basic information, that has like your education, your overall work experience, not work experience, like what project you're work for when you're in university. But if apart for the resume is something you write your proper detail, like what's the JD when you're working for somewhere, what's the key role you're doing, and maybe a detailed version of that. That is something that I figured out throughout my career. I think I'm
Awesome.
wrong or I'm right, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Mer, for sharing. Anyone else who would like to share what do they think about the difference between a CV and a resume?
I think resume is the concise version, and in CV we write the detailed version of हमने कहाँ कौन सा experience है हमारे पास, हमने कहाँ काम किया है. So I think ये है.
Okay, thank you, Akeen. Anyone else who would like to share some insights on that front before we move forward?
Kritika has raised her hand.
Okay, so Samit, could you please take the names and then start with whoever has any insights to share, because I can't see who has the hand raised.
Okay. So Kritika, can you share your opinion?
Yes, under CV you have more than a page of details about you, whereas in resume it's just a summary of your achievements, your personal portfolio. I mean, the details that would be preferable for corporate.
All right. Is there anyone else?
Nasir is trying to speak. Nasir, can you please share your opinion? Can you please repeat?
I think he's probably talking to someone else.
Oh, okay. I think that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've muted him. You may continue.
Awesome. So let's move on to the difference between a resume and a CV, right? So we'll talk about that. So basically, resume is a 1 or 2 page summary of your education, skills, and experience. So it's like brief and concise. It's no more than a page or two at max. But when it comes to your CV, it's longer. It's at least 2 pages, and it's a more detailed synopsis of what you have done. It's a summary of your education background, your teaching and research experiences. So say, for example, if there are any projects that you have done, any publications, any presentations, any affiliations. So you mention all of those. Samir, could you please mute Nasir if possible?
Yeah, I muted him. He unmuted himself a couple of times, so maybe he wanted to ask something, but I think it's just the background noise.
Yeah, seems like. Okay, perfect. So, so we talked about CV and a resume. So CV is basically used when you're applying for academic, education, scientific, or research positions. So it's a detailed synopsis of what you have done, what you aspire to do, how you can contribute to something. So that's something that we mentioned in the CV. Whereas when it comes to resume, it's like a 1 or 2 page summary of your education, skills, and experience. So that's just a brief about the resume. So mostly for all the jobs that we are applying for, we use resume rather than a CV. But when you're applying for research roles, academic positions, so for example, if it's, you are applying to be a faculty advisor at some university, or you're applying for a research assistant position, or maybe pursuing a PhD, or you're applying for a research position, then you have to basically go for a CV rather than a resume. All right. So top resume myths that you shouldn't believe. So there are a common misconception that a good resume guarantees a job. That's not true. It guarantees you an interview. It does not even guarantee an interview. It basically means that if you have a good resume, it might get you an interview, but it's not like that it's guaranteeing you either a job or an interview. So keep your resume to 1 page. It's a common misconception that we need to make sure that the resume should stick to 1 page, but it's not true. If you have the pointers that could add value and it's showing what you have done, what your career plans are, how you contributed and add value, what were some of the things that you worked on, what was the impact of that, what was the outcome of that. So if you're mentioning all of those and then you're covering those sections, then even a 2-page resume is fine. You don't have to worry that it has to be 1 page only, right? You can never overuse action verbs. We talk about a lot of things when it comes to action verbs. So people have made it a point to use action verbs in everything, be it their personal statement, objective statement, or summary, or the experience section. So they make sure to mention that everywhere. And sometimes what I've seen is that they use action one. If you have a 1 bullet pointer, they would mention 3 to 4 action verbs in just 1 sentence. But that's not right. You need to use action verb, but that doesn't mean that you basically overdo it. So you have to make sure that you create a fine boundary between overusing the action words or adjectives, or just using them. Resumes aren't important anymore. A lot of people feel that if you have a presence on LinkedIn, if you have a personal brand on LinkedIn, then resumes are not important anymore. That's not true. If you are getting interviewed, people are going to ask you for a resume. So it's a must-have kind of thing. And you should have your resume ready when you're applying for job opportunities anywhere in the world, right? Even if the recruiters are reaching out to you on LinkedIn, they would ask you to share your resume, and then you'll have to share that. So you should make sure that you keep it updated, because a lot of people feel that when they are working in the industry, they don't need to basically update the resumes, but you should have that document ready. Even if you are working with a company, you never know what happens later on. So you need to make sure that you have the opportunity ready whenever there comes a chance, right? Because every individual is looking for growth, and resume helps you with that. how to get people interested in your resume. So you need to make sure that you're leading with accomplishments. Don't just mention your job responsibilities. I think when Omer was talking about the difference between CV and resume, he talked about adding job responsibilities, right? So that's just one thing that we don't add in the resume or a CV, right? Because a lot of people add job responsibilities, but you don't add job responsibility. Rather, you mention that what sort of work you did and what impact it created on the employer, right? So for example, I'll share the examples later on. Then showcase your brand, right? So for example, if you have achieved Employee of the Month award or something of that sort, or if you achieved something during that time, you need to showcase your brand and get people interested in you. Use numbers, use power verbs, tell them what's the, so for example, if you are applying for a role in marketing and they're looking for a person who is an expert at social media marketing, right? So we need to add examples in terms of, for example, how was the reach improved somehow, was the follower count increased somehow. So we need to show that sort of impact and talk about all of those when applying on those sort of position. Make sure that whatever information that you add in your resume, it's relevant to the job role. So one common mistake that a lot of people make is that they don't add relevant examples, right? So for example, if you're applying for a customer service job role, then you need to make sure that the experience that you portray there is relevant, right? Similarly, the skills that you mentioned, it's kind of relevant. So I'll give my example. If I'm a HR professional, but recently, hypothetically speaking, that if I've moved to UAE and I feel that HR jobs are scarce there and I need to apply for a customer service role, then I need to look at transferable skill. Transferable skills basically means something that was a fit for that job role as well, and it is the fit for the new job role as well. So for customer service, we want people who can talk to the audience. We want people who have good communication skill. We want people who have good analytical skills. So all of these things should be a part of the resumes when you're drafting. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when you are drafting a resume, and this is how people get interested in your resume. When it comes to
just a minute.
Yeah.
So Hiba has asked a question. So she wanted to know, she wants that you take 1 to 2 resumes from participants and tell what should be changed in it. So basically a critique on the resume. Will that be possible for you in this session?
I think we can cover that once we are done with the entire session. So we can cover that for sure if we have some time. I have
Okay.
something scheduled at 12, but if we get done before that, then definitely I'll make sure to do that.
Sure,
Or
sure,
Hiba,
sure.
what I can do is that I'll share my LinkedIn profile with you guys, and you can share that with me on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to provide you some feedback on that, friend. All right. So in either case, you will get the feedback either in this session, or even if we are not able to cover that, you can just share that with me on LinkedIn. I'll make sure to get back to you.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions, Sameer?
Not right now. You may continue.
Awesome. So now we talk about how to create a branded resume. So what do you guys understand by branded resume? Anyone? What do you guys understand by branded resume?
Possibly a resume that it showcases your value to the employer.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone? Guys, we need to do that ASAP because there is a lot more to cover. So if you guys can wake up and make sure to share whatever feedback you have, whatever insights you would like to share, that would be amazing. And that way we can have a two-way experience.
So a branded resume for me is something, it's the first impression that you give to the recruiter. So it's look like that you're presenting in a very good way. No matter what, if you're a designer, if you're an HR professional, if you're a marketing professional, or whoever you are, it's look something that brands you, that showcase the full potential in you, that showcase the full potential, how you can be a good fit, or maybe how can you can impact onto that opening that you're applying for. So make it look like something that can be, जो अगर आपको हजारों रेज्यूमे मिल रहे हैं तो उसके अंदर वो एक रेज्यूमे आपको अलग से दिख रही हो. That is something, a full package of them. Usually what we see is like people are like sharing resume like making on templates and doing those sort of things. A resume should be something that I think it's more likely to be a personalized thing that showcase how you want to showcase yourself to make yourself a brand. So for me, that is something as a branded resume.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Umair, for sharing. And this was kind of what we are going to talk about. So branded resume is something that talks about your unique value proposition, right? So you need to make a list of 5 to 8 things that you want your resume to showcase. It could be your education, it could be your experience, it could be anything that you want your employer to know of, because that's something that differentiate you. So for example, when I'm drafting my resume, I talk a lot about cultural changes. I talk about what sort of change management strategies I implemented with the company, how I contributed to my company's growth, what were the headcount increase, how headcount increased in a particular time. So I talk about all of those things because that's kind of relevant to my next employer, right? So we need to make sure that we make a list of 5 to 8 things that you want your resume to showcase. Then what keywords is the job description asking for? A lot of times we don't even look at the job description and we just see that there is a position, say for example, there's a marketing manager position. But then even if you have a marketing manager position, the requirements would vary from company to company, right? If it's a startup, they would want different sort of experience. If there is a company which is quite well established, they would require a different set of skills. And so you need to make sure that you identify the keywords in the job description is asking for, and see if you have the similar skills experience. That if you have that, then list them, right? Because if you have altered the resume as per the needs of the company, there are high chances that you would be called for an interview. So you need to make sure that there is relevancy when it comes to what you're adding in terms of your skills and experience. And then you need to make sure that you sprinkle your keywords and skill set throughout your resume. So once you have identified that this is what the job description is asking for, then you need to sprinkle the keywords throughout your resume. It can be in the experience section, it can be in the skills section, it can be anywhere, but there should be at least 60 to 70% match in terms of skills that the company is asking for and what you can bring on the table. So you need to make sure that those skills are relevant and those skills are aligned with the job role and job requirements, right? So that's how you create a branded resume. And it's a common thing that people send one resume for all the positions. So please don't do that. Make sure, even if you're applying for 3 jobs in the same company, you have to make sure that you send different resumes. Because I'll give you an example. When it comes to marketing, so there are different roles. One is marketing manager, other one is social media manager, and then there could be another position, which is the PPC, the paid marketing guy, right? So for all of these positions, the requirements from a company are going to be different, right? So if you want yourself to be called, then you need to make sure that you add different skills and you add different experiences, right? Because if you're adding the same thing in all the resumes, it would just give recruiters the impression that you are not interested and you have sent one size fits all kind of resume for all the position. So make an effort. That's how you would add value to the company's growth, right? So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Then moving on to the next part. So what goes on a resume? So there are a lot of things that goes on a resume. Name and contact information, that's first and the foremost thing, and that's something that you should add on top, because a lot of times I have seen that people add the contact information at the bottom, or I have seen that they add it on somewhere in between. But you need to make sure that you make life of recruiters easy in terms of providing your contact information in a first blink of an eye, right? So it should be always mentioned on top. Then you can add a career summary. Career summary is one part where we can add a lot of keywords related to the job description. There is another section which is education and qualification. So here you can talk about any certifications that you have done. So for example, if I'm drafting a resume for myself, I talk a lot about the different HR certifications that I've done, those certifications which are known in the industry. So not something, so for example, a lot of people add, like for example, if I've done 20 courses on Udemy or 20 courses on LinkedIn Learning, I'm not going to add all of them on my resume. But if you have a industry recognized certification that is known in your area, that's known in your field, then definitely add that. Then you talk about work and internship experience. So that's something that we need to add, and make sure that you have quantifiable results in terms of whatever work experience that you're mentioning. After that, you talk about volunteer and extracurricular experience. So for example, if it's a resume of a person who has just graduated out of college, then the section would be something that would that they can add, because they generally don't have a lot of work experience. So this can talk about what they have done in terms of extracurricular activities. And after that, you add skills. So for example, it differs from position to position, company to company. So analyze the job description and add skills according to that. Then how does your resume match the position description? So you, as I mentioned earlier, you need to see if there is a relevancy in terms of what you have done and the job that is posted. So if there is a relevancy, then apply for that. Then use keywords, analyze the job description, use keywords from that. Skill set, again, skill set relates to the job description and what you have done. So relate both, kind of bring relevancy with both of them, and then try to sprinkle them in different areas of your resume, right? Then you need to talk about what value you can bring to the table. So that's something that you need to add either in the career summary part or even in the experience section that you have. And you need to watch your writing, right? So you give your contact information early, because resumes generally feature clear short descriptions, right? So you need to make sure that if you're adding a career summary or an objective statement or something of that sort, it's not like a 10-15 liner thing. It should be short, crisp, and should define who you are and what you have done. Be consistent with punctuations, because that's something that I've seen, that people create resumes, but there is a lot of punctuation issues, grammatical errors. There is no appropriate font or size use. They use variety of fonts and sizes, but you need to make sure that you stick to one font, and then size can be 2 to 3 at max. It shouldn't be more than that. Then match word sentences throughout. So for example, you can use action verbs like develop, performed, managed, because that's what define you about your leadership potential as well, and what sort of experience you have had. Be honest, a lot of times we have seen that people try to fake their resumes, so please don't do that, because even if you get through the interview stage, there are high times when you can't clear the next steps of the process. So be honest, don't over or undersell yourself. And be honest throughout whatever information that you're providing. Sometimes we do over exaggerate when it comes to what sort of work we have done just to get ourselves interviewed. But make sure, even if you're over exaggerating, you have an idea about what sort of skill or experience you are over exaggerating on. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. A lot of times people tell, but they don't show. So never just tell the employer what you are like, show them with examples and let them describe you, right? So, and let's take one example. There is one example. I'm a hardworking person with great organization skills, right? Can anyone tell me what could have this person done better when it comes to what he's mentioning in the resume?
He could have
Anyone?
give an example of situations where he worked hard.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
The
Anyone?
information provided is completely vague. He has to be focused and specific for the particular role which he's intending to apply for.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Sarya.
Okay. So he can showcase वो अपना पुराना कोई experience share कर सकता है where he was leading a team of some people and उन्होंने they excel if maybe it was a project जिसको वो lead कर रहा था, ठीक है, तो they excel, उसके बारे में facts and figures जो थे वो वहाँ पे share कर सकता है. So it can have a more insightful एक तरह से input हो जाएगा वहाँ पर, instead of just writing I am this, I am that. He could support that with example, with his real life example, with his experiences.
Absolutely. So the example that all of correct that this example is quoting that I'm hardworking person with great organization skills. That's not going to work, right? Because it's just showing that you are speaking high about yourself, but you don't have a proof of that, right? So what the person could have done better was that I was elected the chair of my student society's budget committee. I was responsible for the account of 24 members and a yearly house budget of $32,000, right? So that's something that they can mention that shows that this person has a lot of organization skills and he's a hardworking person, right? Because he was selected at as the chair of the student society. Then he was managing the account for 24 members, and also he had a budget of like around $32,000. That means that he has good organizational skills, because of which he was given that sort of opportunity. Like let's take another example. So what's the issue with this example? Anyone? I'm a responsible student. So what do you guys think we could have done better here?
He or she could have said, I was responsible for so and so, and I did so and so at my time in university.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else?
Showcasing your accomplishment rather than just telling that you're a responsible student. Showcasing your accomplishment throughout your university or maybe any college experience that you have. Maybe if you're working for any sort of organizing any events or something like that, that showcase the responsibility of taking any leadership quality and throughout your like the whole event, or maybe any event that you organize, or maybe any school, college, or university participation, that showcase how you go through your step one till the end.
Absolutely. So you need to have an entire process in terms of what sort of skill or what information that you're giving to the recruiter when you're sharing the resume. So in my 2 semesters at a particular university, I've taken 31 credits and maintained my 3.7 CGPA or GPA, right? So that's something that shows that you are responsible, you are focused on your career, you are focused on what sort of in terms of what you want to do with your academics. So that shows that you are responsible. So you have to make sure that skills, any skills that you're mentioning, you make sure to add information that's relevant and that's shows your potential brand or value that you can bring to the table. So consider that there is a clerical job ad. So there was a question from, I think, Hiba, where she asked about what if we want to switch our jobs and try something new with the skills we have, but we don't have experience relevant to that job? In this case, how to get ourselves selected for an interview, right? So in this case, you need to talk about basically the transferable skills that we can pull out, right? So if you are a marketing professional, but you are not getting a job in your field of interest, and you think that there is a job ad, which is a clerical job ad, but you feel that that's something that you could do quite well, right? And there is a hypothetical example that the job ad says that you are responsible to answer multi-line phone system, route calls to appropriate person department, greet customers at reception desk, typing as needed, photocopying, filing, occasional errands on campus, and other clerical tasks as assigned. The person must have prior clerical experience and be dependable and punctual. So from this job ad, we can identify that this person, they are looking for clerical experience. There are times when we might have that, but we might not have that. But we can identify that there are some transferable skills that we can pull out from that job board. One, time management. Other than that, they are mentioning like multitasking, because this person is responsible for multiple things, greeting customers, typing, copying, filing, occasional errands. They have to answer whatever calls that they are getting on their phone system. So it's like a multitasking sort of role. So you can pull that out. You can mention time management, how to meet deadlines, work efficiently, and then effective communication skills, right? Because if you are attending calls, you are routing the calls to appropriate person, you are greeting the customers at reception desk, then you need to have effective communication skills. So these are transferable job skills. So this is just a one examples that I have added, but there are a lot of transferable skills that we can pull out from different job ads. So in those positions, when you're applying, you don't have to fake your experience, but you need to highlight the transferable experience. So I was taking a resume review session yesterday, and one person mentioned that they are applying for customer service roles, but previously they have worked in the capacity of a of of a marketing manager. So what do we do in that case, right? So they mentioned that I fake my job titles or something. Then I told them, no, you can't fake job titles, because that would show that you're providing them misleading information. But you can show them the transferable skills. So for example, if you are a marketing manager, that shows your management experience, that your leadership experience, your leadership potential. And but you can fake. So for example, if you're applying for entry level job roles, but you have like a senior level worked in a senior level position, then you can maybe just remove the degree. So for example, if you've done masters, you can just add bachelor's to that degree, just to make sure that they don't feel that you are just here for a temporary role and you are just looking to make money to get your home running, right? So that's something that we need to basically look at when we're applying for those sort of job roles who are not a direct fit as per our skill set, but you need to make a living. So that's why you're applying for those job roles. And that's perfectly all right. A lot of times when we move to a new region, we do that. So next we talk about, you may have noticed from these examples that the previous example used numbers, right? Numbers jump out on a page of text because everything that you mention on your resume, it's kind of a text heavy, right? So you need to make sure that you use numbers to your advantage, quantify examples, and then numbers preceded by a dollar sign are even more effective. Even dollar sign or whatever are going on in your region. So it can be a dollar sign or AED, say for example, it could be anything. So for example, if you help the company reduce the cost by something, then that could be added. If you had increased the revenue in some way, so that's something that we can add. Consider that if you are a fresh graduate and then you were managing society budgets, then that's something that you can talk about. If you have recruited as a part of the society, if you recruited certain people for certain position, you can talk about that. Say for example, you recruited 30 people in a time span of, say for example, 15 days. So that's something, that's an achievement, you can mention that in your resume. So you have to basically give them quantifiable results. Then you need to write effective bullet points. So people always ask me that how do we write effective bullet points, right? So you have to use who logic to describe the experience. Who basically WHO, and then we mentioned that what did you do in that during that role, how did you do it, and what was the outcome, right? So you need to basically talk about these things. What did you do, how did you do it, what was the outcome? So that would define the entire experience that you have had. You don't mention job responsibilities, I would reiterate that again. So for example, I can't mention that I was responsible for recruitment initiatives within the company, but I can mention that recruited, say for example, technical talent, and increase the turnaround time of the company, or reduce the turnaround time of closing the position of the company to 30 days, right? So that's something that I did. So, and how did I do it? I can talk about it. Could be either way a good employer branding strategy, or there could be anything. So we need to make sure that we use who logic when we are describing the experience, right? So if there is an example that there is a team leader, so that team leader can mention that I managed a team of 10 direct report professionals by using organization and time management that led to 90% of performance feedback satisfaction rates, right? So that shows and that this person was managing a team of 10 direct professionals. What he did was that he used his time management and organization skills, and that led to the outcome, which is 90% of performance feedback satisfaction rates increase, right? So that's how you create effective bullet points whenever you are mentioning your experience in the resume. Then get feedback, because we are drafting our resume on our own. So there are a lot of times we might overlook the mistakes that are there in the resume. So some common mistakes that I have seen are that some people even mention their email address is wrong, their contact details are incorrect, they miss out adding one number there. Sometimes they add their LinkedIn profiles, but those links are not working. Sometimes those links are not hyperlinked. So those are some common mistakes. There are grammatical errors in terms of experience that they have mentioned. So they should mention it from the recent experience first, and then they should go on to what sort of previous experience they have had. But people don't mention it in this manner. They just simply mention that they have had an experience, but they don't basically mention it in the chronological order, right? So you need to mention those. You can get feedback from your resume from mentors and professionals, your family and friends, people who are working in the industry and who know how to review the resume. You can get feedback from them. You can even reach out to recruiters on LinkedIn. Some recruiters are actually so helpful that they help you out with resume revamp. They help you out with different opportunities there. What sort of so for example, every country has the different resume style, right? So if you're reaching out to local recruiters there to get feedback on your resume, sometimes, and there are going to be people who won't reply to you, but there are a lot of times when people would come back to you with feedback on your resume, and they would tell you what sort of things that you need to revamp it there, right? So don't hesitate to ask for help. A lot of times we're hesitant and reluctant to ask for help, thinking that we would get a no, but that's perfectly all right. So for you never get yes from anyone, right? Even if it's in your personal life, there are times when you're reaching out to 10 people and even your friends deny to help you. So use the same logic even in your professional life, and reach out to people on LinkedIn and your professional network and ask feedback from them in terms of how I can basically revamp my resume. What are the things that I can skip? So that's something that we can do, right? So now a lot of times people and bragging about ATS friendly resumes. So can your resume beat the bots, right? Because now as the automation is coming in, has come in, a lot of things when it comes to recruitment outreach or the way recruiters were reviewing the resume, it has changed substantially over time, right? Because the companies also want to save some time, some money of the recruiters, because if you are spending time on reviewing 400 resumes, that would be a hassle, right? So there are ATS that companies use, and then what happens when we use the ATS is that we give ATS some keywords. On the basis of that, resumes are shortlisted. That's the reason I mentioned that you need to sprinkle keywords in almost every section of the resume, right? So what is an ATS? Anyone who have an idea about what is an ATS before I move forward and tell you guys? Anyone?
It's a automated system. It's an applicant tracking system. Basically, it goes through your asset software that goes through your CV or resume, and then once it sees that you have the keywords that it's looking for, it goes to the actual people, the hiring managers.
Okay, that's true. Anyone else who would like to share something?
So basically, it is an application tracking system, which is like a bot who is like who has been given some rules through which most of the resumes get filtered, and then out of like uh, like selected, and then people can review the remaining ones only.
Absolutely. So for example, so if you talk about ATS, so I'll tell you what ATS stands for. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. In short, an ATS is basically a piece of software which is used by employers to scan and rank the job applications they receive for their open position. As I mentioned, there are so many people applying for the same job role. Especially what I've seen is that if you're posting a remote job role, the kind of reach that we get for position, it's way too high. So that's also something that you should keep in mind when you're applying for remote roles. Try to apply even for hybrid roles, because those roles have kind of a lower reach compared with the fully remote roles, because a lot of people want to work from home and they kind of start applying for those. So with ATS, what we do is that we provide ATS the keywords that we need to look for. That, for example, we tell them that this is the education that we are looking for. Say, for example, it's an MBA in marketing or bachelor's, whatever is the information. Sometimes we even give applicants give ATS the CGPA that is required. So that kind of varies from position to position, but there are rules that we create when it comes to ATS, and all resumes are scanned on the basis of that and ranked on the basis of that, right? So for example, if there is a resume which has around 60 to 70% relevance in terms of the keywords, it would show you that, and it would rank higher than the other resumes which are there in the market, right? So this shows that if you are 10 people are applying, who is going to be on the top in terms of skill set, in terms of experience, in terms of relevancy with the job that we have was open. So that's how it works, right? So how do you create an ATS friendly resume?
Okay, so we have two questions before we move forward. Can you answer that?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so Nurul and Sabah is asking, can we add 2 contact numbers? So basically, she's asking about the contact details that we add in the resume.
Ideally, you should add 1 number, but if you want to use 2 numbers, that's perfectly all right. But you should tell them what is the primary contact number, right? So if you have the primary contact number working fine, please go ahead with that. Just mention that this is a primary contact number, but it's not an issue when you're mentioning 2 numbers.
Okay, so the second question is, what should we do in a company? What should we do if a company has done 2 to 3 interviews and assessments from us, and they are letting us wait for 3 months? So what should be our response to inquire? Is it fair? So this is the question asked by Anas Wazir.
Okay, Anas, this is a very good question, and I have got this question multiple times from multiple people. So it's okay to basically reach out to recruiters and ask for feedback, right? Because sometimes they would get back to you, sometimes they wouldn't get back to you, but it's always good to ask for feedback because you have invested time and energy in the process. So make sure to follow up with them. Anas, if you can drop me a message on LinkedIn, I'll share the follow-up templates with you as well. So there are certain follow-up templates you can just mention, you can use some of those and tell them that this is a position that I applied for. This was something I got interviewed. I just want to update, get an update on my application. If you could provide me though, that would be helpful. Something of that sort. It shows that you are still interested, and sometimes the position gets closed, right? For example, if we have taken the interviews assessment, but meanwhile the business priorities change or something changes, and then you are not recruiting for that position. So it would make sure that recruiters know that you are still interested, and you can definitely follow up. So if you need help with follow-up templates, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll help you out with that.
Okay, so we have one last question. So Nausheen is asking, should we add our LinkedIn link on our resume? As we are
Yes,
always
definitely.
updating the resume with as we are always updating the LinkedIn. Yeah.
Definitely, you should add your LinkedIn profile because resume is not showcasing your entire personal brand, right? But if you are using LinkedIn, then definitely you can add different posts, you can share your experiences and anything, and people can basically look at that. A lot of times, this is not a common practice in UAE or Pakistan for that matter, but when you're applying for roles outside of Pakistan, they even check your social media accounts, right? What sort of presence you have had, if you're talking bad about maybe your company, so that's something that they verify when they look for social media accounts. So definitely add your LinkedIn profile link. That would be quite helpful.
Okay, yeah, so these were the questions. You can now move forward with the presentation.
Awesome. So when it comes to links,
okay, so
you
just
can
a
also
minute,
add if you're
Kritika has raised her hand.
Yeah, Kritika, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Actually, I have a query. Do we need to keep updating our LinkedIn profile? I mean, the LinkedIn page at the same time we update the resume. Which one would the employer prefer to give more importance? The
So
resume.
it should be a combination of both, Kritika, because see, there are times when you are reaching out to recruiters on LinkedIn, so it has to be a updated LinkedIn profile because they would get to know about your experiences. Sometimes recruiters are headhunting for profiles, so there are times when there are difficult to fill roles, we reach out to people directly on LinkedIn rather than posting a job, right? So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is updated, and at the same time your resume is also updated. So it should be a mix of both. I can't say that if you skip LinkedIn that should be fine, if you skip resume that should be fine. It should be both. Both of them work in sync.
Okay, thank
Because
you.
Recruiters keep an eye on both. If you're applying for applying for a job role directly, either via the website or when there is a job posted on LinkedIn or other job posting sites, then you would need your resume. But there are times when recruiters reach out to you on LinkedIn, right? So for those roles, you need to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is updated and it has basically all the information that's needed. Not just in terms of your experience, make sure that you mention what you have done during that time, mention the profile summary should be there, the tagline which is mentioned, the headline statement should be properly mentioned. Again, this is not a LinkedIn session, so I can't talk more about that in this session, but you need to make sure that it's updated with all the information that you need.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
No problem. Sameer, before I take on other questions, I just wanted to add about the links. So we talked about LinkedIn profile links, right? So for example, when it comes to designers, there is a question which is basically mentioned that graphic designer portfolio link. Definitely you add your graphic designing portfolio links. A lot of people add their Behance profile links. Even if you are updating your profiles on Behance, that's also good, because recruiters even check Behance, right? For example, recently I was recruiting for a graphic designer position, and I reached out to all the people through Behance. I looked at their portfolio, I looked what they have done, and then I reached out to them via that. So that's something which would be helpful. Other than that, if you are a software engineer, then your GitHub profile link or Stack Overflow profile link, that's something which would be helpful. Nausheen, you mentioned that if you're updating, so should we add link? I did not get your question. But
It was
if you
about
can
the LinkedIn
clarify.
one. Yeah, it was about the
Yeah,
LinkedIn one.
so
Okay, it was covered.
okay, perfect. So there is another question by Nasir. Can you clarify a smart resume should be of how many pages? Maximum 2 pages, but even if it's 1 page, that should to serve the purpose. What you need to focus on is that your resume is relevant to the job role that you're applying for, and it's basically adding mentioning the skills that employer is looking for, mentioning how you can contribute and add value. It has the transferable skills in case if you are applying for a job that is out of your domain. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. And it should be what sort of value it brings to the table. So we can't say that it should be 1 page or 2 pages. It basically depends on your skills, your experiences, but shouldn't be more than 2 pages. That's for sure. Okay, so we have okay, so you need to add your LinkedIn profile link, and LinkedIn profile link can also be customized. I can share how you can customize the LinkedIn profile link, but again, it's out of the domain for this session, but definitely we can cover that in the next session if needed. So yeah, I'll move forward, Sameer, now, because we just have 10,
Sure.
12 minutes. I think hardly 10 minutes. Okay. So how to create an ATS friendly resume? So you need to pick up an easy to read resume format. You need to feature different keywords for different positions. So keywords for different position, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be different. So you need to mention those. Create an initial resume as a model, and then edit it to build a new resume for each job. So you need to make sure that whatever job that you're applying for, you edit your resume. There is going to be standard format, but you need to change the experience a bit, you need to change the skills a bit, but it's not going to be a 360-degree change, because that you can't fake your education or something of that sort. So it's going to be one initial resume format, but you would be changing that as per the job needs. Don't forget to keep adding new experiences and skills to your resume as you progress. As I mentioned, that once you start working in the industry, you kind of forget to start updating your resume, but that's not how it should work. You should continue updating it as and when needed. Then there are another things that we need to, so this is like a high risk resume, because your peers are making the following mistakes. Avoid them and come out on top. So 25% have mentioned unprofessional email addresses, so you need to make sure that you don't mention unprofessional unprofessional email addresses. Recently, I came across an email address who mentioned that as we all know that Barbie is trending. So that email address was actually barbiedoll@something.com, right? So you don't mention things of that sort. Fancy templates get scrambled. So don't use fancy templates unless you are applying for design roles or roles that need that sort of creativity. 21% include graphic and charts that are unreadable. So make sure to avoid that. One simple thing or one simple tip that I would like to give you is use Microsoft Word. Easy formats are there, and then you can just tweak it as and when needed and convert it into PDF before sending it to the employer, right? Omitting keywords from job description increases plausibility. So make sure that you look at the keywords and then add those in your resume. 43% of resumes are submitted in incompatible file type. So it should be PDF or at max Word. Even I don't prefer Word because the grammatical errors are even visible at a blink of an eye when you open a Word file. So ideally, you should go ahead with the PDF files only. When you're mentioning achievements in a job in basically your resume, so how do we go about that? So some people mentioned that they help new employees learn company culture, they solve problems, they analyze the data, but then you could change it, right? So you can mention some professional examples. For a computer science resume would be that you led and managed a team of 6 in developing new software. You develop company procedures and guidelines for data analysis and security that increased efficiency by 30% in the first 6 months after implementation. You could mention that you conceptualized, planned, launched, and led the search engine optimization committee. From this example, you can see that they have used multiple keywords. So led, managed, developed, conceptualized, planned, launched, led. So these are all the keywords that they have mentioned, and they are showing the impact that it created, right? So you have to make sure that you add your achievements in that regard. So there are a lot of action verbs that we can use. It could be like initiated, advanced, oversaw, instituted, motivated, improved. So variety of keywords. You need to identify what fits the best as per your job role and what sort of work you have done, right? So we can share the list of keywords with you guys. Then when it comes to professional summary example, a resume summary should be a short paragraph. It should be a short paragraph, impersonal sentences, just like your achievements task section. So you need to, so for example, there are people who mention that I'm seeking a position as a computer scientist. I'm friendly and a good problem solver. So I'm great at working on group projects. Just ask anyone. So this shows that it's not complete. It's vague. At the same time, it's not professional either, because he has mentioned that just ask anyone. Definitely we can't, recruiters don't have the time to go and ask anyone, right? So you need to make sure that you mention it in a way that shows your value, right? So the revised statement could be that you are a creative and a people-oriented computer scientist with extensive project management experience. It could be within your internal projects, the university projects as well. And you have advanced knowledge of the creation of graphic designing software and programming languages relevant to the web, right? So that's how you need to mention your professional summary, and you need to make sure that it's professional. What a bad resume looks like, right? So for example, there is a resume, they mention resume on top. You don't need to write the word resume on a resume. So for example, then this person has mentioned about the experience, so manufacturer of lampshades for the hospitality industry. This doesn't tell me anything about your ability. So, and there is a lot of white space, so you'll have a lot of time to come up with something to put here, since you'll still be employed with this unemployed with this resume. So you need to make sure that you add quantifiable skills, your experience is properly there, your education is there, because from this resume we can see that the contact details are missing. They have mentioned address, but that's none of our use, because we don't need address for anything. Your experience is incomplete, your education is not there, your skills are not mentioned. Whatever information that you have provided, it's not relevant to the job role. If you tear down, then this is the email template, which basically got 500 plus candidates to the interview. So there are a lot of things that we could see from this examples, right? So there is a person there's a candidate who has applied for the job role, but she mentioned that while slightly out of place, I attended the Women 2.0 conference yesterday, and had the chance to see your pitch. I was blown away by you, your team, and most of all, your company, right? So if you want your responses to be skyrocketed, write a first sentence that focus on something specific you observed about the prospect, right? Then you need to add genuine compliments that feel that you know the company. They feel good because they say you are saying that your work matters, right? Then you have mentioned, the person has mentioned that I spent 6 years at seamless.com working closely with amazing leaders who you know well. That's a mutual connection that they have identified on LinkedIn, because there is no shortcut to trust. If someone is recommending me that you are a good fit for a role, then I would definitely trust their recommendation, right? And then I see such amazing potential in your company, and I would love to be a part of it in any way. So you can see that that person is motivated to apply for that role and is authentic, and he has the positive energy that begets positive energy, right? Then my primary focus in marketing, with a lot of experience marketing to the same corporation and user you seem to be attracting. He mentioned that how Catherine's work is kind of similar to what Elite does, right? So you are building credibility by mentioning experience with similar employers. And then this person mentioned that, again, I would love to find a time to chat more about the company and tell you how could I help. It's a low friction ask. He's not focusing that you should get on a call with me or something of that sort. He's not asking for a 30 minutes meeting. Instead, he asked that if there is interest, then we can get on a call. If there is no interest, then we don't need to get on a call, right? So see how specific examples people actually give you when they're applying for jobs, and this would give them an edge while you are applying for jobs, right? Because they have the entire background of what sort of work they have done, how you can contribute, how you can add value. So you need to follow a similar sort of strategy when it comes to job searching. Then use white space strategically. White space naturally attracts the eye. Items surrounded by white space attract attention. So use white spaces strategically. What's a better use of a white space? So there is a person who has mentioned that supervise the monthly inventory, manage 3 clerks, sold $1,200 worth of apparel weekly. So you are mentioning 3 bullet points, and there is a lot of white space. What you could do is that you could change it to, in this position, I managed 3 sales clerks, supervised the monthly inventory, and sold $1,200 worth of apparel weekly. So in this case, you can see that the white space is bare minimum, and you actually mixed 3 pointers with that just to show them what sort of work you have done. So make sure that you use white space as and where needed, and just don't overdo it. The key takeaways from this section is basically always have a personalized summary section at the top highlighting why you are the perfect fit for the role and the company that you're applying for. Simplicity is the best. So recruiters are scanning and they don't want to be thrown off. They're always focused on the content. They are not focused on the design. I would highly reiterate that they are not focused on the design of the resume. They're focused on the content that you are adding on the resume. Always include in projects and activities that you participate in, even if they are not relevant to the job role. This is particular to the people who are applying for entry-level job roles. Do not write content or contribute to, do you write or contribute to something online? Included. I have had discussion and interviews about my blog, LinkedIn content that I post. And sometimes recruiters even talk about the post that I post on LinkedIn, and they kind of tell me about their perspective, and that helps in conversation starters, right? So that's something that we can do. Focus on numbers and impact level over just your task. So for example, targeting client needs in campaign conceptualization is more impactful with created revenue growth of 600% with biggest account, right? So you need to add your key takeaways, you focus on numbers and the impact that you have had. Always try to get a referral with each of your application is the best thing you can do. But even if you don't find it, that's perfectly all right, because there are going to be times when people would not want to refer you because they don't know you, right? Keep it neat. It goes without saying, but many forget it. Focus on your impact, never undersell it, because a lot of times people are not sure what to add on resumes. So look at what you have done, why the person should hire you, what differentiates you from other candidates who are there in the market. So this is how you work on the entire strategy for your recruitment, right? So that's just it about this session. Any questions or anything that you guys would like to ask?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, please go
One,
ahead.
the for the regarding the ATS, on my resume, I try to use bullet points and black and white, and adding the keywords to each relevant job. Um, I hope this is a good strategy. And also, how many ATS systems are out there? Like, like, are there many?
There are a lot of ATS system, and different companies have different budget needs and budget requirements, so they make sure to get an ATS as per that. But it's like different ATS. But for example, if it's a small scale company, they would be using a ATS that costs comparatively less. If it's a big company, they would use an ATS that has a lot of other functionalities as well in terms of recruitment, tracking, automation, and everything. But ATS are in bulk. I hope, Andrew, this answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
I have a question. Maneesha,
Yeah,
can you
Matt,
tell
please
me
go ahead.
what's the way to make a ATS friendly keywords? Like
What's the what?
you
I couldn't understand your
you
question.
you just said that there are a lot of ATS programs, like the ATS softwares, right? And we
Yeah.
don't know which company is using which ATS software and what's the
Yeah.
keyword they're looking forward. So how you gonna explain, like, where we gonna search exact keywords that can be like used in that ATS and we can got the
Okay.
job, or maybe something like that.
Okay. It's basically taken out from the job ads itself, right? So can you just share any example of a job ad, and then we can take that as an example. I can tell you exactly what are the keywords that you can extract from that.
Just a second, I have to go to my LinkedIn and search for any job.
Yeah, just any job ad that you would like to go ahead with, and I can tell you what we can get from there.
Mm,
Okay, we have also got a question from Sadia Malik. So she's asking, what should a beginner add in their experience section if they have no experience?
So if you don't have experience, you might have had academic projects. You can add that. You have society experience. You can add that. You have volunteer experience. You can add that. So these are certain things that you can add. For beginners, what we have seen is majorly that they add projects or the certifications, any courses that they have done from Udemy, Coursera, of things of that sort. That's something that you can add. Volunteer experience. So these are the things that you need to add, or if you have no experience at all.
Manisha, how I'm gonna like show you, because I can't add image on this chat thing. So I
You have
can
an image. Can you share a link if possible? I can open it on my
I
end, or you can share. Samir, can we give him access rights, like to share the screen
Sure,
if possible?
sure.
I can stop sharing my screen.
okay, let's चलो आप इसी की बात कर लेते हैं, for
Khalid,
example.
you have a question that should we add photo? Please don't add a photo, because a lot of times I've seen that people add unprofessional photos on the resume as well. That's something that I would not recommend at all. We also, there is a very good pointer that Anas has highlighted, that candidates, the person should basically name the resume with their own name, rather than just it's like file123.pdf or final resume 001. I even got a resume that was named as blah. So that's not something that you need to add. Make sure that it's professional and you are mentioning your own name. Okay.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
I
So
can't I can't move it like well, I can, sorry. You can see this. So this is a job that I just recently, like, मैंने just ऐसे ही देखा है और तो ही मिल गई. So what
okay,
will be
perfect.
the perfect keywords for that?
Okay, so the keyword from this particular area, we can identify that one from job responsibility. Second, we can identify that from qualifications, and then you can also identify that from about the job section, right? So what they're looking for is someone. If you look at the qualification, you can see that they need a working experience of an advertising agency is a plus. And then they have mentioned animation skills. So animation can be one keyword. Excellent storyteller. So storytelling can be another keyword, right? Then own machine loaded with Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, and After Effects. These are your technical skills that you can add. Then they have mentioned ability to manage multiple projects simultaneously. So this shows multitasking skills. So you can talk about that. So this is how you identify the skills. Then if you go ahead and look at the responsibilities, then you could see that again in the last pointer they have talked about storytelling, or before that they have talked about animation skills, ensure all projects are completed on time. So this is the time management skill. So this is how you identify the skills from the job itself and then start mentioning those in the resume. I hope that, Umer, this answers your question.
Yeah, it does. So basically, you decode the whole description, and we always
Exactly.
need to decode that before applying that. So
Absolutely.
I recently got a lot of resumes that we recently had an opening and we were hiring, but people usually don't go through the description. So
Exactly.
that is
That's
why.
exactly how you can unify yourself, or that can be your USP, because you would be quantifying your resume and at the same time you are mentioning the skills that are relevant to the job ad, right? So editorial experience is also one thing that is highlighted in this particular job description. So if you are taking care of all of these things, you would be in a good place.
Perfectly. Thank you so much.